Hi, it's Dwyer, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Also, if you're into fantasy sports, baseball, basketball, football, for new accounts, right, the promo code on fanduel.com is Dwyer777. Right, save some money, give yourself a break. Now, this video is not for the faint of heart. It's not for people who are trying to figure out what the crowd thinks so they could follow the crowd. Right? Let me say this. As Nassim Taleb pointed out in one of the best books I've read, Fooled by Randomness, sometimes the public is wrong. Right? If I told you months ago that the United Kingdom would leave the EU, that there'd be bubbles in things like the bond market, the stock market, in some circles I'd be considered a lunatic. Right? Other circles would realize that I'm right. So, in this world of bubbles, let's talk about one of the biggest bubbles right now in the boxing market. Right? And to me, that bubble, and it should be obvious, and I understand, online, for whatever reason, maybe politics, few people have this opinion, but one of the biggest bubbles in boxing right now is Saul Alvarez. We just had fights involving Roman Gonzalez and Golovkin. Is there anyone watching this video? And if there is, I hope to hear from you in the comment section to this video. Is there anyone watching this video who seriously thinks that Saul Alvarez would have a chance against Golovkin? I don't. Right? Alvarez, who hits hard, always has a puncher's chance. Let's say he has a puncher's chance and little else in that fight. But yet, BoxRec.com ranks Saul Alvarez as the #1 fighter pound for pound, right? Ahead of those guys, ahead of Kovalev, ahead of Andre Ward, ahead of Tyson Fury, right? Ahead of Terence Crawford. At some point, it becomes a joke, doesn't it? Right? Let's look at the guy's actual resume. Then I'm going to talk about the actual bets that I think a gambler needs to make. Understand, part of the position here is going to be unhedged. It's risky. This is a risky video. But hey, it's one man's opinion, right? You make up your own mind. Now, one has to wonder, since really no one's come close to beating Golovkin, for example, right? You know, we could talk about whether Kell Brook won 2 rounds, right? Kell Brook didn't make it to the end of the 6th round. He didn't survive half the fight, right? And that's supposed to be a meaningful challenge. Well, contrast that with Saul Alvarez. Let me just say this. What I want people to do is to look at the CompuBox numbers, not even from the Austin Trout fight. And those are absurd, right? What I want people to do is to look at the CompuBox numbers from the Erislandy Lara fight. Right? Saul Alvarez, according to CompuBox, look this up, over 12 rounds, landed 5%. We don't even get to the second hand, folks. This hand's down here. He landed 5% of his jabs. 5%. That's the best fighter in boxing, pound for pound. 5% of his jabs. What I want people to do, too, is I want people to go to boxingscene.com's discussion of the CompuBox. You're going to see that they point out that of the 88 power punches Canelo landed in that fight, 88, 73 of the 88 were body shots. right? 73 of the 88. So if you're a fighter and you know what you're doing, if you can move, and if you could take away Canelo's body punching, and he is an excellent body puncher, make no mistake about it. But if you could move enough to not get hit with the body shots, you're looking at 15 other power punches that this young man landed over 12 rounds. Right? If there's an athlete out there in boxing with an Achilles heel who's highly regarded, it's this guy. Let me say this too. I'm going to let people independently look up the Austin Trout CompuBox numbers. I'll just put it to you this way. Right? Trout lands 30 more punches. 30 more punches than Saul Alvarez. 30 more. Right? Alvarez does outland him in power punches. He does. Alvarez lands 96 power punches. Austin Trout lands 95. In other words, Trout loses the power punching total by one. Right? In terms of other punches in the fight, Trout outlands him by 31. Now, what I want people to do, because I know many people watching this video are going to say, hey, the numbers don't tell us much about the quality of the punches landed. But what I want people to do is to try to reconcile these numbers with the actual judges' scorecards. Right? No fighter in boxing, in my opinion, has gotten a bigger break from the judges than Saul Alvarez. Right? No one. Right? Now, if you disagree with that argument, my evidence are the judges' scorecards in the Austin Trout fight. What's your evidence? Let me say this too. That fight was so preposterous that they actually announced the scoring while the fight was going on. Had they not announced the scoring, had you not known going into the last 4 rounds that Saul Alvarez had pretty much already won the fight, I'm just telling you there would have been an outrage on that fight. An absolute outrage. Right? Because, keep in mind, when they announce the scoring, you don't have the big discrepancy between the TV broadcasting team scores and the actual scores. Right? The broadcasting team then starts talking about the actual scores. You don't have, Steve Farhood or Harold Letterman telling you, hey, on my card, Austin Trout is winning this fight by 3 or 4 rounds. Or even, on my card, this fight's a toss-up at this point. So, let me just say that you have at least 3 guys who have gone the distance with Canelo. 3. Who feel they were robbed. You're going to have to ask yourself about their level of awareness and experience. The 3 guys are Austin Trout, Erislandy Lara, right? The CompuBox numbers back them up, quite frankly, and Miguel Cotto. Well, let me say this. His fight against Liam Smith, to me, is a close fight. It's a close fight. Liam Smith is a very live underdog. He has a chance here because there are what I call structural defects in Saul Alvarez's game. You just saw Golovkin race across the ring trying to track down Kell Brook. Right? We just saw that last week. He moved. Right? Lowered his center of gravity, knew how to cut off the ring. right? Shorten the ring on Kell Brook. Saul Alvarez doesn't have that level of foot speed. He just doesn't. In fight after fight, he just doesn't have that level of foot speed. As I just mentioned to you, in terms of his ability to hit you with punches other than body shots, he didn't show that against Erislandy Lara. Right? Don't believe me. Look at the CompuBox numbers. Read the analysis on boxingscene.com. Right? So, in my opinion, this fight asks a different question than Ward Kovalev, than Fury Klitschko. Let's visit the Ward Kovalev fight for a moment. The question for me in that fight, and it's a big question, right? I don't have the answer to it. The question is Andre Ward still Andre Ward at 175 pounds, right? He was a 168er, right? Is he the same fighter? And is he the same fighter after being outside the ring for a while, right? That Sullivan Barrera fight troubled me. Abel Sanchez, Barrera's trainer, right, who happens to be Kovalev's trainer, pointed out that if Golovkin lands the same kind of punches Sullivan Barrera landed, Andre Ward would be in trouble. I don't think any of us learned anything from the Alexander Brand fight, right? That was a made-for-TV event to get money for everyone, right? That wasn't the kind of fight where you thought, okay, Brand's seriously going to test Andre Ward. So the big question is Ward still Ward? If he is, he has a shot of winning the fight, right? If he's not, same question in the Tyson Fury Vladimir Klitschko fight, right? I personally believe that if Tyson Fury shows up on his game, then there is nothing Vladimir Klitschko can do to beat him. Don't get me wrong, Vladimir Klitschko always has a puncher's chance, right? He's taken guys out with right hands, he's taken guys out with left hands, he has one-punch knockout power. But he's robotic. He's not the fighter Tyson Fury is. So you're watching those fights, and the question is, has Ward brought his A game with him? Right? Has Fury brought his A game with him? Here we have a different dilemma, don't we? In the Canelo fight. Canelo could be on his A game and could still lose this fight. The bet I'm recommending here, and it's an imperfect hedge, you're exposed. You could easily lose it all. Understand, the fight is taking place in the United States. The crowd is likely to be at least an 80% Canelo crowd, right? I personally believe that Canelo is not in shape, right? I don't believe he's in shape physically. I don't believe he's in shape mentally. I know I'm sounding hard in this video. Okay, whatever, right? Let's talk about the physical part. He's a size guy. Balloons up when he's not in the ring, right? Walks around really the same weight as Golovkin. Is trying to convince the world that he's not a middleweight, even though he held a share of the middleweight title. So he's dropping down now 6 pounds. Right, to fight at 154. You know, between fights, this guy's not in the area code of 154. You know, fight night, the guy's likely to weigh around 170. Right? He's not a junior middleweight. We all know that. He struggles to make the weight at junior middleweight. He has such problems. Wasn't one of the tricks of the Mayweather fight, and it was unfortunate that Floyd did this. But you remember Floyd had him lose an additional 2 pounds. Right? An additional 2 pounds. Because Floyd's team knew that weight was an issue with Canelo. So here is Canelo fighting at 154. Right? Fighting at 154 against a guy who really is a 154 pounder. Right? So, in my opinion, Canelo is going to fade in this fight. What I want people to do is to look at his history through CompuBox. You're going to find out that he already throws below average volume. He's a sharpshooter. He is one of the biggest punches in boxing. He's getting by on accuracy and power, not volume. Right? He KOs Amir Khan in the 5th round. He didn't have to go to the later part of that fight. He didn't have to push himself. So, the hedge part of the play for me is the under 7.5 rounds. Right? Why? You're getting a plus 120, better than even money. Under 7.5 rounds. That's the hedge part of the play. Why? Because I feel either guy has a shot at a knockout before the midway point of the 8th round. Right? I think Canelo is going to be most effective when he's well rested. In other words, I think his stamina is going to start to fall off a cliff as this fight continues on. But for the first 7.5 rounds, he's going to be dangerous. Now here comes the controversial part of this video. If Canelo doesn't get Liam Smith out of there within the first 7.5 rounds, in my opinion, Liam Smith is going to dominate. Let me repeat that. Liam Smith is going to dominate the later part of the fight. Rounds 9, 10, 11, and 12. Right? My logic is simply Liam Smith is a guy with more stamina than Saul Alvarez. And Saul Alvarez has certain holes in his game. Right? Foot speed, an inability to hit Lara up top. Right? Lower volume. A fighter with height like Liam Smith, if he comes in, pumps a jab, gets out of the pocket before he's hitting the ribs, keeps Canelo turning. He has height that Miguel Cotto doesn't have. Right? If he could fight the Trout fight, Lord knows he has videos of fights where opponents had sustained sections of the fight where they were successful in dealing with Canelo. If he looks at the Trout fight and realizes, look, I need to go to the body more than Trout. I need to throw a few more power shots. If he looks at the Lara fight and says, hey, I need to make sure this guy doesn't hit my body. And I need to realize that if I move my upper body like Lara did, this guy's going to have a problem landing more than 15 punches up top, power punches, over 12 rounds. Right? If Liam Smith does his homework, this is there for him. Right? One man did his homework. Floyd Mayweather. That fight wasn't close significantly. That fight wasn't close early, when Saul Alvarez was fully rested. Think about it. Right? It's structural. Early in that fight, Mayweather comes out, he's hitting Alvarez to the body. He then is moving around the ring. Alvarez could barely touch him. When you see a fighter who has had multiple opponents, right, have an opportunity to have success against him, then you really do have to ask yourself, gee, how could this happen? Right? Are there parts of the guy's game that lend themselves to a Lara, allowing him to only hit him, or having him only hit him 15 times up top with power shots over 12 rounds. Right? So make no mistake, you know, I've been here online talking about Canelo since he was a teenager. Right? If you research my comments on Canelo here online, you're going to hear me comparing him to Floyd Mayweather when Canelo was 19 years old. Right? Canelo has some Mayweather in him. He's a skilled fighter. Right? He does have one of the biggest punches in boxing. As Amir Khan knows, he has one punch knockout power. But folks, he's a bubble right now. Right? If we're having a conversation on the very best in boxing, and if we're talking about things other than box office, right, in my opinion, he does not belong in the same conversation with Golovkin or Crawford or Ward or Kovalev. Right? Now, that's how I see it. I know many people aren't going to buy it. Trust me, I've been at multiple barbecues where I've talked with a bunch of boxing people, and across the board, everyone loves Saul Alvarez. I mean, loves him. Right? This is one of those rare fighters who is loved. Everyone loves Saul Alvarez. I'll just say this, and I know it's controversial. The wrong man in Alvarez's corner is getting the praise, right? We're treating Alvarez as if he were Oscar De La Hoya. I know Oscar had his demons. I know Oscar's career wasn't the longest, right? I understand that. I know Oscar later in his career was fighting lighter man. I know Oscar was beaten up by Manny Pacquiao, right? In a fight that I got wrong here online. Okay, fair enough. But understand, Oscar had hand speed. That's all Alvarez doesn't have. Right? Oscar had foot speed. That's all Alvarez doesn't have. Look at Oscar. There are two schools of thought on the closing rounds of Oscar against Felix Trinidad. I understand, for many, Oscar's running in that fight. Right? For me personally, Oscar is dancing in the later rounds. He's up on his toes. He's showing you a nimbleness that you're not going to get from heavy-legged Saul Alvarez. Right? We're equating Canelo with fighters like Oscar. There's a gap, in my opinion. So, Liam Smith, the other part of the bet, right? One part of the bet's the under 7.5 rounds. The other part of the bet is to take Liam Smith at a plus 600. Folks, Canelo is so overrated that you're getting 6-1 odds on his unbeaten opponent, who has a better shot in this fight, in my opinion, than Kell Brook had against Golovkin, than Vladimir Klitschko has in the rematch against Tyson Fury. Liam Smith is a live dog here, even in the United States. Right? To sum up, the bet I like is the under 7.5 rounds at plus 120, with the other side of the bet being Liam Smith to win at plus 600. But I want people to understand the risk involved. Earlier in this very video, I told you that I've never seen a fighter, well, put it this way, of all the fighters in boxing today, the fighter who's gotten the most preferential treatment to me is Saul Alvarez. Right? I can't explain the Austin Trout scorecards. At least in the Lara fight, they call that a split decision. Right? But I can't explain the Austin Trout scorecards. I can't explain, quite frankly, the Miguel Cotto scorecards. One of the judges in that fight, what fight was he watching? Right? So, understand the risk involved here. if a judge's favorite fighter, Saul Alvarez, makes it past the halfway point of the 8th round and either wins by late stoppage or gets a decision, you lose it all, right? There's heavy risk involved here. But I'm just telling you, if Liam Smith plays his cards right, if he pushes a guy who walks around in the high 160s, low 170s, if he pushes a guy who mentally knows that he's dodging Golovkin right now, right? Let's get real. If I walk around at 170 and then my story to the public is that I'm not a real middleweight at 160, right? That it's for that reason that I'm giving up my middleweight title. And I'm not going to fight Golovkin for the next year. Right? If I know that's untrue, I'm just telling you the way boxing works. If I'm then in a fight where I'm getting tested and I lack the stamina, right? Because I've been passing up parts of my dinner every day, and I've been spending time in the sauna, and I've been in the gym with these rubber suits on. And if I'm tired and I know that I'm openly dodging a champion in the division in which I myself had a belt, that train could fall off the rails, right? So, I think Liam Smith's a live dog. I like the under 7.5, plus 120, hedged with Liam Smith to win the fight at plus 600, right? For me to be right, one of these men has to end this fight within the first 7.5 rounds. In other words, before the midway point of the 8th round, right? Or, if the fight goes longer than that, Liam Smith needs to either close the show by KO or win the fight outright by decision. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. And if you do believe that Saul Alvarez, who lost to Floyd, who won a split decision to Erislandy Lara, who was in trouble against Miguel Cotto's brother, right, who, you know, really was badly outworked on the CompuBox numbers by Austin Trout. If you believe that he's the best fighter in a sport where you have unbeatens like Roman Gonzalez, Terrence Crawford, Sergey Kovalev, Andre Ward, right, where you have masters who can fight inside, outside, adjust their punches like James DeGale, right, like Tyson Fury. If you believe Canelo is the best pound for pound, as BoxRec does, right, and I understand it's a popular opinion, then I hope you leave the explanation for all of us in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.